Hello everyone and welcome back to another season of the Dribble podcast. My name is Craig O'Donoghue from the West Australian newspaper and I'm looking forward to another season of talking to guests from the Perth Wildcats, Perth Lynx and WA basketball in general to give you the best insight possible into what's happening in the sport throughout this state. It is an exciting week. The NBL season begins this weekend and one of the biggest differences you will see with the Perth Wildcats on Sunday is this man.
John Rillie, a career high, 45, including 6 threes.
Really? Bang! There's his 10th three-pointer. The first guy in NBL history to hit 10 three-pointers in a playoff match.
Yes, he was a hell of a player and now he's hoping to become one hell of a coach. He is the new Wildcats coach. His name is John Rillie and I'm pleased to say he is in the studio with me today. John, welcome to the Dribble podcast.
Appreciate you inviting me in, Craig. Always anxious to be the first guest on this well thought out program.
So you've been working in the US from 2010 really as an assistant coach while also being part of the Boomers coaching system before you really got this opportunity. Talk about the challenges of being a first-time head coach when a lot of people have gone through a system where they've done it at a lower level instead of being an assistant coach all the way through before suddenly having the spotlight on them.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest challenge is figuring out when you feel like is the appropriate time to take that next step. Because if you do want to become a head coach, someone has to see you as a head coach. So preparing yourself so someone believed in what you felt inside you. And that took some time because when you transfer from being a player to a coach, it is a lot different.
So I reckon we'll use the headline 50-year-old coaching virgin at some point, like the movie 40-year-old virgin, possibly tomorrow, actually. What's the biggest challenge from a courtside perspective when you're suddenly in charge on the day? What do you have to get your head around the most?
Yeah, the thing that I've learned the most as a coach is you got to trust your players. So like the Monday to through Friday is building that trust, putting them into situations where they can be successful because once the ball's thrown up, you're really in the hands of your players and you hope you have the right ones making the plays for you.
So what about from a game day perspective? I find the basketball coaching side of things really fascinating compared to a lot of other sports where AFL, they're in a box up in the grandstand, they've got 1,000 statisticians in there and they're feeding all this information. You're making decisions on the fly a lot of the time. How do you work out what you want to do at certain points at the moment? What's your thought process?
Yeah, there's a lot of thinking that goes into it. You're thinking about offense, you're thinking about defense, you're thinking about matchups. How do you get someone like Bryce Cotton involved in the game more if he's got off to a slow start? Defensively, they might be beating us on something that we felt really good about before we went into the game, and they're just bamboozling us. So making those decisions, but you also need to have an understanding of the flow of the game. Although the scoreboard mightn't reflect how you're playing, the flow of the game might be more your tempo than the opposition's. So understanding that over time, the pace of the game will actually reflect nicely on the scoreboard. So
you get the stats sheet at quarter time all the time. Do you have someone monitoring anything to tug you on the jacket and say, "Oh, you need to know about this right now," or is it all in your head that you're figuring it out as you go?
Yeah, look, I lean on my assistants for the statistics because just like my playing days, I lent on my feel for the game, my IQ for the game, and I'm very much the same in my beginning as a head coach. So I don't want to lose the flow of the game, but we do certainly have barometers statistically that we gauge, and I lean on the assistants for those things.
So Mike Kelly is one of your assistants, and he did the exact same path as you. Went and did a lot of assistant coaching, and his first gig as a head coach was in the NBL. How beneficial has it had to have someone who's been through what you're going through now on your staff? Yeah,
very fortunate that I knew Mike from the periphery during our playing days, and then when we were both doing the hard yards in college basketball, our rapport grew a little stronger. So having someone that's been through it, he's been an NBL Coach of the Year with Cairns Taipans, to have him there to be able to say, hey, you need to pull back, you need to ride it a little bit more, or just generally encouraging, because if anyone knows Mike, he's a very positive person.
Now, if you can hear some clicking in the background as you're listening to this, it is our photographer, Kelsey Reid, dominating here with their shots. So don't be wondering what all of that is in the background. You appear to be an emotional bloke during games. You're emotional when you're a player. It was a great part of your personality on the court. You've had a couple of tech fouls already. It's been an interesting start. How are you handling that side of the game?
Look, as far as I navigate my way through this, those are the things that you got to figure out. Sometimes your team needs a little of a lift. Sometimes I might need a little bit of a lift. But it's also, the game can be manipulated. So sometimes, you're trying to get the referees on your side, or you're trying to make it a point. So that's just part of the game and a bit of byplay within it all.
Have you always been a white line fever sort of person? Are you a different person from tip-off to the end of the game, or do you feel like your personality matches you regardless?
No, I would say any time some type of competition is on the line, I don't want to use white line fever, but we'll go with that since that's what you like. But definitely the intensity rises when there's a competitive nature to it.
What I found, obviously wasn't in Darwin, but I was at the 2 pre-season games, and the thing that stood out to me with watching your personality pre-game, post-game and during game was Trevor Gleeson started at an 8 from about 8 out of 10 in terms of intensity from 2 hours before the game, and was still at an 8 after the game, and was about a 12 during it. Scott was about a 7 all the way through. You seem like a 2 before the game, up to 10, and then straight back to 2 afterwards. You can really change your emotions really quickly depending on the situation. That's a skill, I reckon. Is that something that you've always been able to work out where you need to be?
No, look, in my younger days, I would have operated at like a 12 all the time, but you can't physically operate, and you can't be in good well-being operating at that level all the time. You got to figure out what's important. And during the game, sometimes an assistant might say, hey, like, this is really important, you need to make a point. But for me, making that point, it becomes null and void, or a bit of white noise for the players. So I really want to make sure when I make a point, they understand that I'm making a point for a good reason, just not to hear my own voice.
Who are your biggest influences in the way you coach?
Oh, look, my father, he's always been around my basketball career, heavily influential. Like my wife, you talk about the white line fever, so she brings a groundedness to it all, and it gives me some good feedback about that. And then, look, in my NBL career, I played for some phenomenal coaches: Brian Goorjian, Gordy McLeod, like Phil Smythe was very successful at Adelaide. And then the 2 guys I worked for in college, Leon Rice and Joe Pasternak, such opposites, but it was great for me to be around guys that operated so differently, so I could understand what worked for me and what wasn't really in my realm.
So you were so close to getting this job last year when Scott got it. What did you change much in between those 2 seasons at all? Did you change the way you presented the second time around, having been runner-up effectively the first time?
I guess I just was a little more assertive and aggressive, and I made them understand that I would like the job. Where the first time, I guess you could say, I wanted the job, but I didn't make that probably felt the same way I did the second time around.
So let's get on to some of your players, and we'll start with the man who had his NBA draft dream come true earlier this year.
Luke Travers, the guard out of Australia, Bobby.
Played for Perth, averaged around 7 points per game last year, 20-year-old, 6'7", 210 wing.
Don't you think they need one more core piece?
He did get a core piece. It just happened to come with the 56th pick.
The quick hands by Travers to the hole.
Larry Bird.
He does have that
Got the floppy little hair.
the mustache.
Number 33.
Yeah, he's certainly captured a lot of attention overseas already, which is fantastic. We've known about him for a long time. He used to be nervous. He doesn't look nervous anymore. It's amazing. Like, have you seen a big difference? I suppose you didn't know him last year, but have you seen over the course of the pre-season a difference in the way he approaches things at all?
Yeah, look, everyone's curious about the development of Luke Travers. I think maturity is a wonderful thing. He's been in the league for a number of years now. He's been around some different coaches, so that builds up a little bit of scar tissue. Then getting drafted on top of that, performing well at Summer League, so that's where he's just confidence is coming out of him. But, you know, he's becoming an experienced basketball player, although he's still very young in age.
So the Cavs sent their G League boss to Darwin to watch him, and they'll be over here at different points of the season. What's the relationship like with yourselves and Cleveland, and how you're working out what you want him to do plus what they want him to do?
Yeah, look, Danny Mills is the one that has a good relationship with the Cavs. I'm just understanding what their expectation of him is and meeting those guys. I think the beauty of his game, because it is versatile, that's why he'll play in the NBA. So I always talk to him, you're good at what you do, you need to become elite. And we just need to keep getting the consistency. And I've made a comment several times already, like he showed glimpses of what he can become as a basketball player. Now he needs to stack games on each other's end for him to become like a consistent high-level performer.
How big is it for him to have a stat like steals as an example? His defensive work has been remarkable. As a team last year, they had, as a team during the preseason, he had 43 steals across the 5 games, and he had 13 of them. He had 26 all of last season. Mm-hmm. So when you look at it, he's almost had half the number of steals as he did in 28 games in 5 matches, and just on a third or so of your steals. It's a tough skill to learn. It's a tough skill to work on. Where's that element of it come from? Is it a focus with his mind that makes him go, I'm just going to hone in on this part of it?
Look, he's got a unique ability to sense the play. Now, in saying that, one of the things that I've been consistent with is what I'm demanding of them from a defensive standpoint. So hopefully that rubs off, putting his IQ with that. I think that makes for a good recipe. But also his teammates understand, like, that's a difference maker that Luke can bring to the team. So just like on offense, you play to people's strengths, defensively the same thing.
Your ability to hurt teams when you win the ball, like from a turnover perspective, last year the team was negative 36 points compared to the opposition for turnover scoring. Across 5 preseason games, you're in the positive by 58 this year. They averaged 12 points per turnover last year. You're at 24 this year. They're wild figures. Like, it's a dramatic difference. Your speed is there. How are you punishing teams so much? Can you explain how you think you're able to do that at the moment?
Good scheduling. No, look, it goes back to what you practice is what you're probably going to take onto the game floor. And we've spent a lot of time at the defensive end simplifying rules and expectations and really just, as I said, simplifying what we want at that end without confusing guys.
So if we talk about another player, we've got Luke Travers as the man with the mullet. We've also got a man with a very large beard. Let's talk about this bloke.
Slam down! Manek with a grown man's jam!
How's Brady Manek going? He's arrived with a big reputation as a three-point shooter. Yep. He's struggled with that at the moment, 3 from 23 throughout the pre-season. Not easy arriving in a different country. How is he adapting to it all?
No, look, he's been trending very well. And obviously when you're a pro athlete, you get measured with your success when the games roll around. But what I can tell you, what I talk to him about, is water finds its level. And you look at Brady Manek over his basketball career, he has been an exceptional shooter. He will be an exceptional shooter for the Perth Wildcats, so I'm not worried about that. The things that also probably play into it, he used to be the oldest guy on his team. Now he's the youngest guy. He's never been around teammates with kids that talk about family and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a different dynamic for him to get used to. But his maturity and the way he approaches basketball on a daily effort is, look, it will come.
How challenging is it to move? Like, I was 24 when I moved to Perth, but I was just coming for a job where no one would really be talking about me much. He's got everyone focusing in on him. He's moving to a different country.
Yep.
First time as a pro, all that sort of stuff. How difficult is it, do you reckon, for anyone that age to move to a new country and just start afresh?
Look, very tough. His family background, very close family, small town Oklahoma, grew up together. Parents missed maybe one of his college games. He played a lot of games in 5 years in college. His parents missed one game. So now he moves a million miles away and his parents aren't going to be there for every game. So that's a different dynamic that he gets used to. So for us as a team and as a staff, we have to help him through that. And I think we got a great group to help him through that as well. And he's done an amazing job forming relationships with his teammates as well.
And having spent a decade or so in the college system, how big is the gap? Like, what should people? We have a lot of expectations on players when they arrive, but what is the gap, do you reckon?
So the biggest thing, and just talking to Brady as well about this, in college, you pretty much, as a coach, you organize a student-athlete's day. You figure out a way to fill in their day so they can't get sidetracked. They got academics, they got meetings, they got lifting, they got practice, then they got something else, study hall. Where he comes here, we practice, we lift, he gets a few extra shots up, and his day's done. And he's got no one else around to support him except for his teammates. That's a huge change. Imagine you at 24 just moving without just having to figure it out. It's tough. So that's where he's at right now.
So who does he hang out with the most? Has he got his clique at the moment that he's found? Because it is quite a mature team.
Yeah, look, he's gravitated towards Mitch Norton and Jesse Wagstaff. But in saying that, Tayshaun, Thomas, and Corey Webster, and him, not that those guys are single, but they're here without their families right now. So socially and going grabbing food and stuff like that. So this is a beauty of the Perth Wildcats team, is guys can mingle with each other in different situations, and I think that's somewhat unique in a professional forum.
You arrived to a really bizarre situation with everything that was going on with the changes. Obviously, change of coach, change of CEO, and people moving around and stuff. And you must have wondered at some point, what the hell's happened? It's obviously a big weekend for the club, having missed finals last year. Have you felt anything at all from a hangover perspective of what happened with them last year? Or as a fresh person who didn't experience it, does it feel normal still?
There's no normal when you're around the Perth Wildcats as far as the expectation. Do you feel it? Absolutely, because it's a huge talking point when a 35-year streak gets snapped. There's a lot of questions asked. Now, can I help that? Did I play a part in it? No. But you have to respect what it has created. And for me, giving faith to the Red Army is important to me. So building a team and a brand that they're happy to call their own is really important to me.
Have you spoken to anyone in there about the stress levels being off or the pressure being off in a way? Like 2016, that last game they had to win to get into the finals when they ended up winning the championship. Mm-hmm. It was close and players looked ill on the bench watching because they couldn't control anything at that point. And
yep.
It felt like the stress levels were through the roof last year as well. You don't be the people who ruin this streak sort of scenario. Now that that's gone, is it a little bit easier for them to just play and be like everybody else in a way?
No. Why I say no is I have my own expectations, and that was appealing about the Perth Wildcats, the expectation that the franchise has for themselves. I have those expectations of myself. What you have to do is have to find the balance, and throughout the season, you're going to have your ups and downs. So how do you navigate that without getting too high, too low, invested in the right and the wrong things? So for me, finding that balance, where everyone can see what we're trying to do and where we'll end up at the end of the day.
So you got your season launch on Wednesday night. Hutchie will be over here as the Sports Entertainment Group CEO to be part of the team environment, which he wasn't able to do a fair bit of last year. Do you have much of a relationship with him, or does he leave you alone?
Look, we can pick up the phone and talk to each other. I was fortunate enough to be in person during the interview process, so build a relationship with him that way. Summer League, he come through Vegas to sit down with Danny Mills and myself, and then we've had several phone conversations. So, whatever type of rapport you want to call that, but very accessible.
Well, it'll be nice to be in a face-to-face environment with the boss,
yep.
if you want to call him the boss. Will that be nice tomorrow night to be able to have a social gathering with him, given he's on a different side of the country?
Yeah, look, and any time you can do that, especially with the change that has gone on with the Perth Wildcats, with ownership, with the CEO and all of that type of stuff, the more times you can be face-to-face and creating our own culture, so to speak, it's never a bad time.
Let's talk a bit about Sunday. Aron Baynes will be coming to town. You know him very well, obviously, with your time at the Boomers. How tough is he going to be to counter?
Yeah, look, his resume speaks for itself. Great college career, internationally, NBA. So he brings a presence about himself, and that's what the Bullets have done with himself. Tyler Johnson, Nathan Sobey, Jason Kadee, Kendrick Walker. Devondrick Walker, so they've built a great roster, and Baynes is leading the charge with that.
So someone like him, he's very different to the rest of the league. It feels like he's almost the beast that he is. Mm-hmm. Is it different when you're preparing for someone like that compared to a lot of the other teams?
Look, for us and where we are right now, it's more about how we prepare. And that's been our mindset so far. Now, scouting will come a little bit more into it, but I really want us to have a mindset and the way we play more than who we're playing. We're not going to we're going to respect their strengths, their weaknesses, and all of that type of stuff. But I really want to make sure we understand what we're trying to achieve right now.
Do you have? It's obviously early. You've got many days until Sunday, but do you expect to have the full roster available? I've asked you this before, and you weren't sure. Where do you sit right now?
No, look, I think we're really heading in the right direction with that. I just left practice not too long ago, and we had all hands on deck at practice.
That's a good start, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
You haven't had that yet. One of the things I think Wildcats fans have really enjoyed about you so far is that you've gone out of your way to make sure that you understand the history, and you've brought players back to training. Who we saw Ricky Grace there a couple of weeks ago, seen Paul Rogers there as well, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people there on Wednesday night as well. How important was it for you to embrace that, the former players who you played against and might have clashed with as well, to feel part of this environment?
Yeah, look, it's only my own personal philosophy, but so many people before this current team have put a lot into getting this franchise where it is and what it's revered for and all of that. They should never feel like they can't be around the franchise, or they don't feel welcome, or probably the wrong word, but I want them to know that they're just as much a part of the team as anyone else, because they've had a lot to do with the history of the club.
It's been a massive off-season for basketball throughout WA. First, there was this.
Warwick Senators are your 2022 NBL 1 National Women's Champions.
It's the Rockingham Flames from the NBL 1 West that are champions of the nation. NBL 1 West does the double. They win the women's, they win the men's, and they knock over the Frankston Blues 85-74.
Yes, congratulations to the Warwick Senators and Rockingham Flames for not only being crowned NBL 1 West champions, but for also travelling to Victoria and winning the inaugural NBL 1 national titles. It's massive for the state, isn't it? You're big on going to the NBL 1 West games. It was fantastic for what we can now see coming through.
Yeah, really enjoyed watching a lot of NBL 1 games when I first got to Perth. First, I wanted to see what was in the landscape. And look, at the end of the day, there's 3 locals on the Wildcats roster, and then we got several development players and so forth. So I didn't want to. I wanted to hit the ground running, understanding the local knowledge, and then for them to go to the national championships, and both on the men's and women's side to win, really reflects like how good the sport's going in this state.
And for Perth Lynx fans, reigning MVP and last season's import Jackie Young added a WNBA championship with the Las Vegas Aces to her NCAA championship and Olympic gold medal. It's a fair resume. You're in Vegas for Summer League, obviously. The Aces had more than 50,000 people on the Las Vegas Strip. They shut it down from Caesars Palace to the Bellagio for what was their party afterwards. You could imagine what it'd be like in Vegas, but that's for a party on the street, couldn't you?
Sounds like you're in Vegas, Craig.
And certainly last but not least, there's the Australian Opals at the World Cup at the moment, including these 2 women.
Whitcomb sets up for 3. That'll get the place rocking. Garvin gets a look. And
that's what she does. That's what Garvin gives you.
Yes, WA heroes Sammy Whitcomb has been extraordinary, and Darcy Garvin, the Lynx captain last year, and Rockingham girl, has seized every minute on court. Now, we're recording this a few hours before their final game of the group stage, and it'll be uploaded after that, which makes us hard for us to do justice to us in this setting, but seeing 9,000 people at every single Opals game has been amazing. How have you seen their progress and performances as someone who's been involved with them at the Olympics as part of that the national scene at the time?
Yeah, look, always good to see the women's team going strong. From my understanding, they'll qualify for the quarterfinal. Where they fit in that is to remain to be seen with other results. Sandy Brondello, the head coach, she's a fellow Queenslander, so I'm always keeping an eye on how they're doing. And look, it's exciting. Obviously, Lauren Jackson creates a great buzz around that as well.
You got your boy here today. How's the family settling in?
Well, he arrived about 10 hours ago, so he's probably operating on fumes, but I'm happy to have some company.
Has that been hard, not having him here?
It's been extremely hard. They're a great balance in my life. In saying that, it has allowed me to hit the ground running and, really sink my teeth into the Wildcats.
So 3 kids?
3 kids.
Ages?
15, 18, and 21. So I only have 1 left in high school, so she will transition over here sometime in the near future.
And what's he going to do?
Stay off the streets of Perth.
He didn't even look like moving closer to the microphone, did he, just then? No, welcome to Australia. Welcome to Perth. Look, thanks to both of you for coming in. It's been great dealing with you so far. You've been awesome. And I'm sure Wildcats fans will embrace every second of you being here for the entire duration of hopefully the next 10 years and bringing them lots of championships as well. Now, that's it for this episode of the Dribble Podcast. Remember, you can read all of your basketball news in the West Australian newspaper and keep logging on to thewest.com.au. Thank you for John Rillie for turning up today. Thank you for the magnificent Kate Ryan for all of her production work and for Kels for taking all these photos that you'll be seeing in the online version. The NBL season begins this weekend. It is the Perth Wildcats versus the Brisbane Bullets at RAC Arena on Sunday, so get there. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Dribble Podcast.